Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of Editorial. Acha, what if I say that taxes are actually good? People should be burdened with more taxes. No, hang on. Before you call it rubbish and move to the next video, just hear what I have to say. Let's get right with the show. Now, I'm going to quote Oxfam again. But this time, I'm not going to talk about Indian situation per se. I'm going to talk about global situation. Now, according to an Oxfam report, the world's 5 richest men have more than doubled their fortunes to $869 billion since 2020, while the world's poorest 60, almost 5 billion people have lost money. What am I saying? I am saying the same thing that we spoke about India. 1% of the population, 40% of wealth, 50% of the population, not even 3% of the wealth. ठीक है ना? So it is nothing different. This is what is happening in the world too. Now, most of the conflict, most of the divide, most of the wars, most of the fights, most of the inequality, most of the exploitation happens because of this rich-poor divide. Rich-poor divide causes 99% of the world's problem, social problem. Now, highlighting a dramatic increase in inequality since the COVID pandemic, Oxfam says that world's billionaires were $3.3 trillion richer in 2020 and their wealth has grown 3 times faster than the rate of inflation. So the rich grew tremendously rich, and the poor has grown poorer and poorer and poorer. See, end of the day, in an economy, if there is huge divide, which means the rich is skyrocketing, if the money is, they're piling on money, obviously the money is going from somewhere, and that the person who is losing the money is the poor. So, the money is being drained out of the poor and it is going to the rich. Now, this causes a lot of problem. The problem is when poverty is spread, when poverty is looming, when poverty increases, the world order changes. You will soon find even countries where the entire country is poor and certain countries where the country is super rich. So while you have one group of people who are striving for food, you have another group of people who've got huge amount of wealth that is being piled up. Now, compiling using data from the research company WealthX, it is said that the combined wealth of top 5 richest people in the world, that is Elon Musk, Bernard Arnold, Jeff Bezos, Larry Ellison and Mark Zuckerberg have increased by 464 billion USD or 114%. Over the same period, the total wealth of the poor, that is 4.77 billion people, marking up 60% of the world population, has declined by 0.2% real time. Again, the same thing that I told you. Now, people worldwide are working harder and longer hours, often for poverty wages in the precarious and unsafe jobs. Across 52 countries, average real wages of nearly 800 million workers have fallen. These workers have lost a combined $1.5 trillion over the last 2 years, equivalent to 25 days of lost wages for each of these workers. This is exactly what I am trying to tell you. There is a group of people who are getting poorer and poorer and poorer. The majority of people are getting poorer and poorer, and the rich is getting richer and richer. I will give you some more examples and then we will try and talk solutions. Mirroring the fortunes of super rich, it also says business profits have risen sharply despite pressure on households amid the cost of living crisis. It finds 148 of world's biggest corporation together ranked 1.8 trillion in the total net profits in the year to June 2023, a 52% jump compared to an average profit in 2018-21. Now, this is the situation. Now, let us understand what could be the solution. Let's understand in a very simple language. There are certain people, that is 2% of people roughly in India pays direct taxes. Matlab income tax. So you are earning X amount of money and you are paying direct taxes. Chalo, that is one. Then let us talk about India. We pay GST. Now GST, every individual who is in our country, every individual pays GST. So if say the richest person in India, if that is Mukesh Ambani, goes and buys the spectacles, he pays 100 rupees for the spectacle and 18 rupees for as GST. 118 rupees. ठीक है ना? He pays 18 rupees to the government. He is the richest man in India. ठीक है ना? Okay. Now let us go to the poorest man in India. The poorest man. Call him a daily wage worker. A poor man in India. He too needs this, right? He too needs to see. So when he goes and buys it, he pays 100 rupees for the specs and 18 rupees GST. So, Ambani and the poorest man pays the same GST. 18 rupees him, 18 rupees him. The fact remains that 18 rupees for that poor man is possibly his dinner money. And 18 rupees for Mukesh Ambani, I don't know that even would count in his wealth. So that's the way we pay our taxes. Now, while we will all say that there are corporate taxes, there are other taxes that the company pays, but broadly when you look at individual to individual, this is how it is. He pays his income tax, no doubt. He pays his income tax, no doubt. But the fact remains that end of the day, it is not what Mukesh Ambani pays. What one is bothered about is what the poorest denominator pays, the poorest common denominator pays. He too has to pay that 18 rupees to get this specs. Now what happens if the wealthy pays more taxes? If the wealthy pays more taxes and we call it wealth tax because you are crossing a certain threshold of wealth which one has never even heard of. Top 5 people having this kind of wealth, one has never even heard of. If the wealthy starts pumping in more money as taxes, they would still have much more money than what they require to survive, thrive, buy, live the same lifestyle. But yet what that will do is that money will percolate into the society and a common man will benefit out of it. That daily wage worker will not have to pay 18 rupees for his specs. Not only that, it will help increase infrastructure, it will help increase healthcare, it will help increase everything much more than possibly what we are doing now. That is by collecting 18% from everybody, rich, poor, otherwise. So two things happens. First is it bridges the divide between the rich and the poor because the rich pays back to the society much more than what the poor does, and the poor is not forced to pay the society from whatever meager that he earns. So he gets a better deal. Now, let me tell you, calling for wealth taxes to readdress the balance between workers and super rich company bosses and owners, the report, which is the Oxfam report, says levy on British millionaires and billionaires could bring in 22 billion pounds to the exchequer each year, and if applied, a rate between 1 to 2% on the net wealth would be above 10 million. So you take 1 to 2% on the net wealth, and the net wealth for people who have got about 10 million pounds as their net wealth, you take 1 to 2% and 22 billion pounds is what you could collect. Now, like Julia Davis, an investor and founding member of Patriotic Millionaires of UK, A non-partisan group of British millionaire campaigns for the wealth tax said levies on wealth tax were minuscule compared to the taxation on income for work. ठीक है ना? So what she says is, just imagine what 22 billion a year invested in public services and infrastructure could pay for improving the life of every one of us who lives in the UK and providing our elderly, young and vulnerable with the care and support that they need and they deserve. Like I told you, this particular report specifically is talking about UK, but just juxtapose that to India, no? Just juxtapose that to India. If you have the Adanis and the Ambanis and the Tatas and the Birlas and the Mahindras and the super rich of India, the Narayan Murthis and others, the super rich of India, giving another 1 or 2% of their wealth and giving it to Indian economy, look at the money that Indian economy collects. And that money, look at the way it can A, subsidize a poor, B, look at the infrastructure it can build. So the fact is, it is time that not only India but the world realizes that you have to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. It is almost a necessity. It is no longer a subject that one can have conferences on and one can have debates on and one can have a national debate, international debate and all. It has gone beyond all that. Now it is the time to take a call, to take a decision and to ensure that the poor is subsidized and the rich pays for what he earns out of the poor, because the money that a rich is earning is not coming from Mars or Venus. It is coming from that poor man's pocket because he is spending that money. It's time that the rich thinks of giving some of it back to him. The government thinks of giving some of it back to the poor and try and, like I said, bridge this divide and try and make that person's life a wee bit better. Because today, when it comes to a loan, when it comes to a haircut, when it comes to a loan waiver, everything is easy for the rich. And all of this are very difficult for the poor. Let's now focus on making the lives of a poor, the middle class of India, better. More than, looking at a rich man and more than any other thing when we talk our economy and when we talk about our budget. Till I see you next time. That's tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Namaskar.
Stay ahead with our cutting-edge news app. Instantly access the latest shorts in just 1 minute and breaking news in just 50 words. Download now for a smarter, faster news experience.